Colleagues, can I ask for screens on, please? When that's done, I'll look for the clerk to confirm quorum and if we have any absentees of which we're aware.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have quorum, and nobody had indicated that they would not be attending.
Thanks very much, colleagues. Welcome to the 16th special meeting of the Strategic Priorities and Policy Committee. This is a special meeting that's been held during the COVID-19 emergency. We invite the public to check the city's website for current details of COVID-19 service impacts and remind the public that meetings can be viewed via live streaming on YouTube and the city website. The City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternate formats and communication supports for council, standing or advisory committee meetings and information upon request. To make a request for any city service, please contact accessibility@london.ca or 519-661-2489 extension 2425. To make a request specific to this meeting, please contact sppc@london.ca. Colleagues, will look for any disclosures of pecuniary interest. I see none. We have nothing on the consent agenda nor scheduled items, so we will go to the items for direction, which is one very specific item, and that is the consideration of filling the Ward 6 vacancy. I'm going to turn to the clerk, if I might, to explain the process, and from that, if you have any questions following that, then the clerk will be happy to address those. So clerk, if I could just ask you to take us through the process, please.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. The approved process for filling the appointment will be that the slate of appointees or applicants will be made available to all eligible voters. Each voter will be able to choose one candidate. When a candidate receives 50% plus one or a majority, then the selection process will be concluded.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the clerk with respect to the process? Colleagues, I'll mention one thing. We do have one individual who has withdrawn their name from consideration, and that is on item T. Mr. Stephen Thompson has withdrawn, so that leaves us with 20 candidates. Before we start the voting process, though, there's one thing I would like to say. We've got 20 people who have indicated a commitment and a willingness to serve as we look to fill the Ward 6 vacancy, and I'd like to commend them all. To have this great number of individuals who have indicated their interest, and particularly when we have seen their background, their dossiers, their CVs, and appreciate their interest and commitment in filling this vacancy. That gives me hope for London, and in terms of the positive consideration that many have had in terms of putting their names forward. Councillor Van Holst, did you have a question of the process?
I had one question, Your Worship, through you to staff, and I would echo your remarks about the great applicants that we have. In one instance, an individual just said they would be willing to serve, but weren't interested necessarily in receiving the stipend. So that also is an interesting offer of service, but I wanted to ask through you to the clerks if that's a possibility.
Let's ask the clerk the question.
I'm not sure that I understand the councillor's question, but I will give it a try. It is certainly the prerogative of any appointed or elected official to decline the remuneration.
I think that's the question specifically. Does that answer your question, Councillor Van Holst?
That's exactly the answer to my question. Thank you very much, and to the candidate as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of the clerk? Councillor Pelosi.
Thank you, Your Worship. Recognizing the choice before us tonight for Ward 6, echoing your sentiments of thank you to all the applicants for being willing to serve. To the clerks, we make this decision tonight. We have council tomorrow night. When would this new colleague for Ward 6 be sworn in and a full participating member of council?
I'm going to guess, but I think you'd rather the clerk's certainty than my guess. So clerk, if you
Absolutely.
could. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, pending the selection process at today's meeting, there will be a formal vote at the council meeting tomorrow, and a bylaw will be ready to be enacted. And then as soon as the individual is able to come in and be sworn in, then the term would be effective. But the bylaw will be introduced at tomorrow's council meeting.
Councilor Pelosi?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions of the clerk? Colleagues, we have 20 names 20 individuals who have allowed their name to stand. For the Ward 6 vacancy, as the clerk's indicated, we have one vote, and it'll be 50% plus one to be the individual filling the Ward 6 vacancy. So with that, I would like to direct the clerk to begin the process, if I could, please, unless you have any other questions. Councillor Turner, I see your hand. Your finger, actually.
Your Worship, prior to that commencement, are there opportunities for members to speak?
This is a committee meeting. There certainly is.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if that had been your intent, Your Worship, to seek those opportunities, or if we were just proceeding straight into the vote.
It's the pleasure of council. My thought was to go straight into the vote. I think one of the things that we had by virtue of this process was the information that was received in advance for individuals, which will allow us all to make our decisions accordingly. But as all councillors know, this is a committee meeting, and I'm in the hands of council. If colleagues wish to speak to this, or we can go right to the vote. It was my intention to go to the vote, but I'm directed by council. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Your Worship. And perhaps if I might just provide some framing comments. I won't speak to any particular candidate, just in the interest of time. I've had concerns and apprehensions about the process that we're taking right now. One of the biggest ones is the fact that this doesn't represent necessarily the interests of the residents and constituents of the ward. The really only true way to do that is through a by-election and actually going to the people. So in this circumstance, council inserts its feelings and opinions into the process to be able to substitute that for the people that are going to be represented by the person that we vote on here tonight. So I still have those concerns. I think if you look through the applications, one of the things I'd ask you to consider is where that mandate might exist for the person who is going to be filling the role as a councillor. I think that comes through in the applications where a mandate actually exists versus one where it may not. So that's really important, and I hope that we can consider in the future how we might want to deal with these consistently, appropriately, and transparently, because I didn't get the sense that existed in our first process. And that's with all respect to Councillor Fife Miller. I think he'll make a fine addition to our council. It's the process that I have significant concerns with.
Councillor Turner, I'm going to take a liberty here and agree with you fully. First, that I think there needs to be a consistent process to the extent that we're able to do that, whatever that might look like. And it's my hope that as we go beyond this, that the considerations potentially of this council or the one going forward is that be dealt with in an appropriate fashion. Because I think here we have one councillor, as we know, that has been put into the position by one process, a second by another. Still not the process that you've articulated, and sometimes timing is what it is. I don't think that's worthy of a more debate at this moment today, but I think absolutely worthy going forward. So that's something that I think we want to consider as we go forward. Any other questions about process, colleagues? So if you're comfortable then, I think what we can do is just take this then right to the vote unless there are any other comments or questions that colleagues would like to make. Clerk, I see none, so I wonder if I could ask you then please to put the names forward.
The ballots are available for members.
And again, we vote for,
You may select one candidate.
thank you.
Councillor Van Holst. Closing the selection process, and there is the first ballot. So we will now have a runoff between Nancy Branscombe.
Thanks very much. Colleagues, we'll ask the clerk to bring that forward. Councillor Turner.
Your Worship, at this point, I think it might be appropriate for us to have some discussion about the candidates.
Before we ask the clerk to bring that forward, absolutely, it's the pleasure of council colleagues to make any comments they wish. I'd invite that now as we ask the clerk to prepare for the second ballot. So with that, Councillor Turner, I see your hand up if you wish to comment.
Certainly. Echoing my colleagues and yourself for all those who submitted their names, we find ourselves with two names now. And a bit of a process to determine that. I think it's really important. Some of the considerations, as my colleagues debated this at the last pass, were to take a look at how we did the appointment the last time. I said, okay, well, we want somebody who's connected with the community, who ran in the last election, who has a strong amount of support from the community, and that they were the second place finisher, and so that demonstrated a certain amount of community support. As we just went through this process right now, we didn't follow that same logic. The second place finisher didn't move forward in this process, and so now we're at a process where we have two candidates. I think both are well qualified and well suited for the position. However, back to my concerns about a mandate, I think Councillor Branscombe, our former Councillor Branscombe, has served 2 terms, was not defeated, and chose not to continue on her terms or for subsequent terms after that. She has achieved mandates in both circumstances. She has had a clear victory and has a lot of support within the community. And I think that's easy to demonstrate both from her electoral results and her time on council. I think she walks a fairly centrist line that can appeal to all sides of council. And so I would urge my colleagues to consider Nancy Branscombe as the candidate, because all of the arguments that I heard in the last pass in our discussion are the ones that support Nancy. I think we have to have, if this is the direction that we're going to go, some demonstration of community support through an electoral result. And I think we also need to be able to have that experience so that, that everyone's up and running and ready to go. A lot of debate about the amount of time that would pass if we had a by-election. By doing this, we shorten that time to be able to seat someone, but it's just as important that the person who takes the seat is intimately familiar with the processes of our council.
Thank you. Other comments, colleagues? I'm looking, I want to be sure. I see no other comments. So with that, we will call the vote. I'll take it back to the clerk before I make such a grand statement.
Thank you. I just want to point out that all of the candidates who did not receive any votes have dropped off, and there is one candidate that received one vote that will drop off. So the next ballot will be 2 names. Members may select 1.
Thank you, clerk. Colleagues, I'll turn your attention to the screen as we vote.
Councillor Van Holst? Is closed. There is no majority.
Thank you. So with no, I'll turn to the clerk. I believe there is another step to be considered. I'll turn that to you, clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You are correct.
Do you want to explain it?
Sorry, I just had to flip my note over. Thank you. There will be a runoff vote between the tied candidates. And should this not resolve the tie, then the resolution of the tie will be by lot.
So colleagues, what that will mean is that if the determination is that this be a draw again, a tie vote, that we will have the 2 names put into a, it looks like a Scotch glass there, and then one clerk will put those names in, the other clerk will draw, and then we will announce accordingly. So with that, I'll invite any other comments or questions before we go to the final vote. I see Councillor Turner.
I'm having fun today, Your Worship. My apologies for monopolizing. Just that last part about going to the jar. Is that something that's articulated in our bylaws? My apologies for my ignorance on.
It is, and I will ask the clerk just to clarify precisely what that is, because in the event of this is one of the eventualities we had to consider. And as a result, the clerk's done some extensive review of this. I'll let the clerk speak to it.
Thank you. Through the chair, this is from the council policy selection process. And section 6.6 outlines the resolution of a tie for a recommended candidate. And 6.6.1 addresses the runoff vote. 6.6.2 reads as follows: in the event of a tie between the same 2 or more candidates in a runoff vote, the tie will be resolved by lot as follows, and the candidate chosen by lot shall be declared eligible for recommendation. Part A, the clerk shall, in full view of the committee, write the name of each tied candidate on a similar size paper, fold the papers with each candidate's name into 2 equal parts, and deposit these papers in full view of all persons present in an open-end box. Part B, the clerk shall ensure that the contents have been displaced sufficiently and proceed to draw names for the purpose of determining the candidate or candidates who shall be recommended for appointment.
Councillor Turner, is that clear and helpful?
Is clear. I had a chance to pull up that. The policy is titled Selection Process for Appointing Members to Committees, Civic Boards, and Commissions. That doesn't speak to members of council.
I will, I'll let the clerk just look at that, but I do want to recognize, I think I saw Councillor Hopkins with a comment or a question. Perhaps we can do double duty here. Councillor Hopkins, do you have a comment? You're allowed, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I missed part of that. I'm having internet challenges. So if I do happen to drop off, I would hope I will quickly make a phone call, but I just want to give you a heads up and clerks a heads up. I do not want to be discounted with not being able to vote here, given that I'm having internet challenges. But my question is around the part that I heard the clerk speak to was that the names would be given clear view. I'm not able to see it from home here, and I'm just wondering how those names that are going to be put in the jar will take place.
Well, let me say, and I will say in the absence, while you still have video, I'm sure that the clerk will hold the names up in some fashion that people can see, but I think it's fair to say you can trust the process, and those others on the Zoom call, if we lose your Zoom connection, Councillor, to confirm that those two names have gone into the mix. So if you lose your video, excuse me, that will be the intent behind it, is so that all of us who are able to see it through Zoom or in person can confirm that the process has been appropriately handled.
Thank you for that. The process needs to be handled, I think, as transparent as possible, but I also want to make sure that you, as the chair, are aware that I am having difficulty with my internet connection, and if I am somehow disconnected, I would like that opportunity to still participate in the vote.
No question, Councillor. We will find you or track you down as need be, or you connect in, but hopefully we won't need to do that as we go through this process. I know the clerk wants to make a comment. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, when I was reading the information, I was reading from, as Councillor Turner has indicated, the appointment process for the council policy appointment process for appointing members to committees, civic boards, and commissions. However, it's the same wording that was attached to the staff report and was the direction of council in filling this vacancy, and was attached to the staff report as Appendix A in the procedure to appoint a member of council.
Councillor Turner, does that respond to your query?
It responds, but not satisfies. Appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
I think it's clear the process that that you would prefer, Councillor, and I understand that fully. Councillor Van Holst, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Worship. I prefer that a candidate not be chosen by lot. And so, I'm very grateful for our previous councillor to have put her name forward. I think she would have done a wonderful job for the ward. I also, in the last selection for Ward 13, said that I think there's a value for the voters to see how one of their prospective candidates would do in the term, and I see that Ms. Amu had every intention of running in this ward, and so this is an opportunity, again, similar to Councillor Fife Miller, for people to see them in action for a year, and then make their determination in the election that comes next. So I think as my preference is not that a selection be drawn by lot, I would change my vote, believing that both these candidates, along with many others, would be do an excellent job.
So with that, Counselor, just to clarify, and the clerk has confirmed this to me, this was a decided matter of council that if this next round ends in a draw, that in fact it would be by lot. And so that's the way it is done at this point. Satisfactory or not, at this stage, those are the rules we work with. Having said that, that's why we will have this, as is determined, a second runoff vote should any other considerations be made with respect to this current draw from the first round. So there will be a second round, and I'll look for any other comments or questions that anyone might have. Councillor Van Holst, you still have the floor.
Yes, thank you. And I just wanted to complete my thought that I'm grateful that there's this opportunity to do it one last time for reconsideration before we go to vote by lot. Thanks.
Thank you. And any other comments or questions, colleagues? All right. So with that, then I will turn it back to the clerk just to advise us of our next step, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, there will be a new selection opened momentarily. There will be 2 names. Members may choose one.
Thanks very much. So we'll wait for that to come open.
Councillor Helmer, Councillor Cassidy.
Well, I don't have a ballot. And my screen will not refresh.
Would you like to make a verbal indication?
I vote for Nancy Branscombe.
Has achieved 57.14% of the vote.
Well, thank you very much, colleagues. This will now obviously come to council tomorrow. Attention, but at the same time, I'd like to thank all the applicants, all 20 applicants, 21 from prior consideration, all applicants who put their names forward with their various experience and qualifications and willingness to serve. That matters to this council, and I think that speaks well to the democratic process, and I honor that. Colleagues, under item 5.1, sorry, back to the clerk. Sorry, I'm trying to circumvent. From SPPC, we need a motion to accept Ms. Hamu as the councillor-elect and to be councillor tomorrow for Ward 6. Is there a mover, please? Councillor Van Holst, seconded by Councillor Fife Miller. Let's call the vote.
Councillor Cassidy? I will mark Councillor Cassidy absent, closing the vote, and the motion is passed 10 to.
Your attention to item 5.1. There were 3 submissions of support. And I'll look for a motion to receive those submissions. Moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Van Meerbergen. Thank you. We'll call the question.
Closing the vote, the motion's passed 13 to 0.
Adjourn. I just want to bring to the attention a very important day. Today is Shine the Light on Women Abuse. And I had the honor to speak to this issue on a very solemn basis in a press conference earlier today. And I want to thank the London Abuse Women's Center and all of our advocacy groups and groups who support women and girls who are in these very horrific circumstances, which is why Shine the Light on Women Abuse is so important. And so many members of council were at Victoria Park when we lit the tree, the Shine the Light tree, on the southwest corner of the park. So with that, colleagues, I'll look for a motion to adjourn the meeting. I see Councillor Hillier, seconded by Councillor Pelosa. We'll call the question. With a verbal vote, all those in favor?
That motion's passed.
Colleagues, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.